Teams don't lose because they're unskilled. No, they lose because they tend to be unfocused. When everyone is busy but no one is aligned, productivity turns into motion without momentum. Listen, we're going to get down into the deep and dirty today. We're going to talk about how to rebuild and how to focus and cooperate. Come on, let's get started. Hello there. Welcome back to Transformation Station. I'm your host, Adrienne Benton. And today we're talking about what separates effective teams from exhausted ones. We're talking about focus because talent isn't enough. Come on, you would agree. Work ethic isn't enough. Even passion is not enough if everyone is pulling in different directions. When a team knows what matters most and directs their energy towards a shared outcome, clarity becomes a superpower and results begin to compound. I'm super excited because before we get into our podcast today, it is time to celebration now. Come on, listen, we have something to celebrate today. We are celebrating because of you. You're an amazing community. You have brought us to 2,500 podcast downloads. I want to say thank you so much for continuing to build this amazing leadership community. And guess what? We're not done. So if you have missed even one episode, I want to invite you right now to go back. That's right. Go back to season 1, go back to season 2, and get caught up so we can push Transformation Station to the entire world. All right. Well, listen, today, so excited about our amazing guest that we have today. His name is Simon. That's right. Simon is here with us today. He is in consulting, delivery, transformation, works with senior managers to help diagnose complex cross-functional obstacles that get in the way of happier teams delivering better things sooner. He does coaching startups at City Launch Labs, speaks at international conferences, publishes articles, and guess what? He is with us today. Simon, welcome to Transformation Station. We're so glad you're with us today.
Thank you very much for having me. Wow, I got jitters listening to the intro, and congratulations on 2,500. Wow.
So excited, so excited. Listen, I'm thrilled and excited to get into this conversation, right? And here's one of the reasons why. I've seen teams with incredible potential stay stuck. And sometimes these teams, Simon, stay stuck because the priorities keep shifting or because communication is not clear, right? We're talking about focus today. And I've seen over the years that a focused team moves with confidence, right? Not because the mission is easy, but because everybody knows their part in getting there. So I want to start off with this question. When a team is scattered or when a team is siloed, like what's the first step that a leader should take to begin to build focus and cooperation?
Ooh, that's a good question. And the reason it's a good question is because it depends what we're optimizing for, right? Scattered and siloed, these are natural side effects of a lot of organizations. It doesn't necessarily mean they can't be successful, but I guess the question goes back to what are we optimizing for? So, because there's always going to be like fracture lines in organizations. There's always going to be organizational seams. But I think what your question is kind of nudging towards, which I love, is how can we increase flow? If we're passing bits, if to go from please to thank you, we have to go across these organizational seams time and time again. Then we're not going to get flow. We're not going to get fast, low lead times, kind of high throughput delivery. We're going to have things lost along the way. So very long-winded way of saying, firstly, just a disclaimer. We need to make sure that, silos aren't necessarily a bad thing. It just depends where they are. The second thing, I think, as you were hinting towards very rightly, what is the goal that we're working towards? And is that spread across lots of people, across different fracture lines, or are they all together? But what comes up for you? What's up for you?
I love what you're saying right there, right? Because I have found in my own, I've been in organizational leadership for over 2 decades, right? And I have found that my teams usually function a lot better when they know, you said it right clearly, what's the goal? When they
Mm.
have a clear understanding of what it is that we are trying to accomplish. I had a leader one time who said to me, okay, you know what the goal is? Let me tell you why it matters.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? And that
They,
also helped us to start to build a confidence. Like, we're not just doing this out of being routine or mechanical. There's a purpose to
mm,
it, right? So I know what I'm doing.
yeah,
There's a purpose. And then the third thing that I clearly just understand in my own mind is um, your team understanding what their role is. I don't know about you. Have you ever been on a team where it's like, you know what you're supposed to be doing, but you don't know who's supposed to do what? And it's like, everybody
yeah.
stepping on each other's toes, like,
Mm.
sorry, I did it, and then there's this confusion, because there were some things that were not clearly defined. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I have a bad memory, so I write things down as you talk because you're unveiling so much that I get excited about, AGN. So thank you. So yeah, the first one, as you said, right? I love how your previous manager used to work, right? Your previous leader, because what he's kind of establishing there is also what is the goal of the goal, and I think
Mm,
Dan Heath
I
kind of
like
came
that.
up with that question, and because
Mhm,
if you know the goal of the goal, you might find that you're actually sub-optimizing for where you're actually trying to get to. If you don't know the why behind the why, you might actually be uh, in the short term, it looks like you're going in the right direction, but then you realize you could actually veer left to get to
mhm,
where you want to get to. So the goal in itself is really every goal is a means to an end. There's always another goal beyond it and another goal beyond that. So kind of understanding, peeling back a little bit more allows you to plan a bit more longer and find actually shortcuts
mhm.
to get there, perhaps. So I love that your manager did that, gave you the context so you can make more informed decisions over a longer time period. Um,
Yes.
and then the other bit you said, yeah, burnout. You kind of touched on this a little bit in that. One thing I wasn't aware of was that when people don't know what they're contributing towards, you use the purpose word really nicely. When
Mhm,
people don't know what they're contributing to, that's a big cause of burnout. If people don't know why they're doing what they're doing, I thought burnout just came because people work too hard, but I didn't realize, according to Alfie Kohn, who I think is a
mhm,
child psychologist, but a lot of his work comes into business as well, is that if people are working really hard but they don't know why they're doing what they're doing, they burn out too. And I was like, whoa,
mhm,
that feels true. And so the
mhm,
other thing you said was, yeah, step on each other's toes. That's a really interesting one. I'm curious why you think it happens. I always assumed if we know what we're working towards, what are we trying to maximize or optimize for? Then and the team has psychological safety. They feel comfortable speaking up, talking directly, giving each other feedback. Then naturally they'd start to understand how they can fit in the right places and it helps. So I thought maybe it's a measure of psychological safety, but I don't know. So I'd love to hear your view, Jen.
Yeah, so what I've seen is sometimes the team knows the goal, but it's not clear who's doing what, right? You may have
Mm,
multiple people on the team that are talented, that are gifted, right? But if I
mm,
don't know that you're the one that is going to type up the document, and then after you type up the document, you'll forward it to me, and then
yeah.
I will go ahead and print it off and pass it out
Mm,
to the team, then we're both sitting down at the computer
yeah.
typing up a document, and we're both trying
Mm,
to, what I'm saying? And then you
yeah,
end
yeah,
up
yeah,
telling somebody else what to do or getting upset because somebody did what you're supposed to do. Whereas if
yeah,
we have a team meeting, we clarify what the goal is, we
yeah.
clarify the timing of it, and then who's going to do what. It
Yeah,
allows that psychological safety that you talked about because people feel secure that
yeah.
they are adding value.
That's good. Oh, sorry. I'm writing things down again. Yeah, that feels good because I realized there's Edgar Schein described trust as being able to be most seen when people act as you predict them to act. When people start to predict in the way that you act in the way that you don't predict, it's like, oh, why are you doing
Mhm,
that? And they start to kind of fill in the blanks with kind of negative thoughts. So yeah, I completely agree. And also the value. Yeah, seeing what I think it feels like seeing through. It feels like the dopamine hit comes
mhm,
when a team delivers something together, and then they see the effect of it. The reason, like it's not about putting a chair leg together; it's about seeing someone sitting on a finished product. That's where you get
mhm.
your dopamine hit. But I
Love
was
that.
curious. Yeah, thank you. I was thinking. Sorry, you said something there. I was assuming because the reason I was so curious about what you said there about kind of stepping on each other's toes was I've seen a lot of teams race to like racy matrices and things like that, and kind of suddenly adding in too much structure too early. Whereas
Mhm,
often these things come out in the wash, as you say, if you give the foundation for trust to be built, for these discussions to happen, through the workshop, as you said, then these things seem to iron themselves out, and it leaves the flexibility for people to grow, to change in their role, to work differently together, for things to emerge, like as a new type of work comes out, as you kind of. So my question to you was, once you've had the workshop, once the team has kind of found their cadence, got to know each other, do you find those stepping on each other's toes tends to disappear, or do you feel there's something else that's needed?
Typically, it tends to disappear once there's that clarity. Brené Brown says clarity is kindness, right? When there's clarity, that psychological safety that you talked about comes. And then here's a quote that I found that I wanted to put. When people hear the same priorities in every space, focus becomes part of the culture, not a one-time announcement. And I think that goes to answer what saying, right? When we provide as a leader that psychological safety, when we provide that clarity as to what the mission is and who's doing what culture, it becomes a priority for the team. And it's not a one time, this time we're going to work together. No, your team starts to crave that psychological safety, right? They see that it's possible, and now it becomes a part of the culture. So right during Transformation Station, we always take a few moments to give our leaders, our listeners, and viewers an opportunity to do some assessment and to stop and reflect. And so everybody right here, I want to invite you to reflect for a moment on the conversation that we're having here with Simon. And here's the reflection for this moment. Ask yourself, as you consider your team, is everyone clear on what matters most right now, or am I assuming they are? Leaders, this is a question that we want to ask, because we know that as we ask questions and we do assessments, we grow. And when we grow, our team grows. So Simon, I want to ask you this question, because I know there are other leaders that are thinking this. All right. Okay, I got it. Focus, clarity. But how does a leader know where to begin with transformation, right? That leader that's saying, okay, I want to move my team from good to great. How does a leader know where to begin with transformation?
Oh, that's a great question. And so, I mean, I think you've nailed it with your previous quote as the first thing, right? If we don't know what we're optimizing for, say, improving the speed and quality of software delivery, if we don't know what one thing we're aiming for, we can't even begin to work out where to focus. So the first thing we need to be in agreement on together is, what's our goal? Is it to increase profits now in the future? Is it to reduce lead time now in the future? Is it to blah, blah, blah? But fill in the gap and choose something. Otherwise, you're all going to be trying to optimize for something different. You won't get agreement. And everyone will be naturally drawn to different problems because they're all trying to, as you said, go in different directions. But then the second question becomes, why aren't we where we want to be? What is most standing in the way of us getting closer to that goal? And the great thing about that is there's generally not that many things. So similar to when you go to a doctor, right? Your objective is to return to your baseline, right? To get to where you want to be. And you'll generally have quite a few symptoms. But if you trace those symptoms back, you'll generally just have one underlying cause, one ailment, hopefully, at any one time. There's very few. But you need to work out, of all the obstacles getting in the way of between where we are and where we want to be, where are they coming from? You'll generally find one, maybe two things any one time. You focus your efforts there, move on to the next thing, and you'll slowly make progress on your goal. So yes, sorry, long-winded way of saying, know your goal, know where you're trying to get to, agree, understand that, make sure everyone's has the same understanding. Secondly, what are the obstacles getting in the way, and where are they coming from? Generally just one thing, generally just one or two. Focus there.
I love that. I love that. So community, this is another great place for you to stop and do some reflection. As you heard what Simon shared with us, ask yourself these important questions. And I'm thinking the way we started, even where we're at now, awareness, clarity, vision is so key and so important when we talk about transformation, right? You have to know where you are in order to know where you're going. And I was thinking while you were talking, you also want to be able to look and say, well, what's working right now? What's working? What's no longer working? I recently had to stop. I saw something that wasn't working too well with the team. And I've been learning over the years that as challenges come up, instead of reacting, As a leader, my goal is to respond, right? To reflect and respond. And I literally had to sit and say, okay, before I start placing blame, having judgment, flying up the hill, let me stop and just, okay, what's working? Acknowledge that. What's not working? Acknowledge that. What do we need to change? It made such a difference in how I was able then to approach, when it comes to myself and how to lead, but also to approach the team, because there was an awareness as opposed to an emotional response. And to everybody who's listening and watching, we want to invite you to respond and to reflect instead of reacting. Okay. So, Simon, let me ask you this question, right? Which comes first for improving team performance? Getting everybody clear on the goals or getting everybody motivated to work together? What would you say?
I'd say it's kind of joint in a way, in that it doesn't feel almost either or, and this is cheekily getting out of it. And the reason I say that is because managers maybe and leaders can understand maybe they have access to certain information. They have access to kind of the broad organizational strategy. Hopefully that's shared, but maybe they can see things that others don't. They can have a broader view of other teams and our interactions with those. And then the staff, people within the teams, they see how things actually work. They see things where they see a whole load of things the managers and leaders can't see, right? They're zoomed in. They can see what's getting in the way, what's slowing things down, what's working, what's not. And to try and set a goal, to try and make progress at a goal without bringing those two parts together is, firstly, it will cause disharmony. It will cause that teams to break apart when we chase goals that don't make sense. But also, secondly, by doing it together, you create that harmony, you create that connection. So I think it's kind of, one supports the other in a way. By understanding the shared reality together and then choosing the goal and working towards it as a team, we bring together the information we need to be successful, to increase effectiveness, but also to create that harmony. That's a very cheeky answer, isn't it? What comes up for you, Jim?
Well, here's my answer, right? Motivation without direction is just energy with nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So I think you're right on point, right? I mean, because you can have a team that's excited, that's committed, that's willing to work, but if they don't know, like you mentioned earlier, if they don't know what they're working towards, if they don't know how to measure success or how their roles will contribute, then it's like effort without movement. So I think you're right on point, right? Clarity fuels motivation, right? We clarify the goal, then we can connect everybody to the goal as we build the motivation. And so we want to invite you to reflect and ask yourself, right? Have you clearly defined the win? Not just what you want the team to accomplish. Have you clearly defined the win, or are you expecting motivation for a mission that your team cannot explain? And again, as a leader, I can tell you from experience, it is very clear to me without my team even saying a word when they don't understand the mission, when they don't really have a clear goal, right? They want to be motivated to get it done, but their motivation is just to get it done as opposed to getting it done with quality. There's a difference, right? And so I think that this conversation is definitely inspiring all of us as leaders to do what we can to ensure that the goals are understood so that the motivation has direction. All right. So, Simon, from what you've seen, what are some common obstacles that block cooperation, and how can leaders address them without causing more friction?
Yeah, sure. So I just want to go back to what you said just now, if that's okay, and then I would like to talk about
Yeah,
common
please.
obstacles. That's good, because I think your points, your points are really good ones. Sorry, it reminded me of something, which is that the strategy. So I guess the goal is, where are we trying to get to? The strategy, but the strategy is the why. And then the how, the deeper we go, we get into the how. So, if we go up and if we ask why, we get the strategy and the goal. If we go down, we get the tactics, or how are we going to achieve it. We can't do tactics without the stuff. And so it's bring the why and the how together. And you need the why before you can do the how, and the how can't be done without bringing everyone together. And even the why, really. Anyway, sorry, I just like the why and the how. The why and the how. Anyway,
no, that's great.
The common obstacle, and I think that comes from Dan Heath as well. The common obstacles that get in the way of staff and how we can. It depends, but a lot of the time it goes down to an assumption. Basically, most of the time, I find anyway. I'm curious for your answer in a second. Is most of the time, if we chase down the obstacles, if we look at the symptoms, the things that are getting in the way of staff, we may have attrition increasing, we may have delivery slowing down, we may have maybe increasing technical debt, like increasing friction of kind of implementing changes, staff hesitating to volunteer for work. We have all these things, and initially, if you look at them, you're like, "Oh my god, everything's on fire. Where do I begin?" But if you start by asking, where is all this coming from? And treat them as symptoms like a doctor would, and treat them with care. You start to work out that often these things tend to kind of coalesce on just one or a few underlying causes. In that case, in that particular organization's case, all those things are coming from, as we talked about, no clear goal. If there's no clear goal, the thing we're optimizing for, the why, then we can't prioritize what work we do, and more importantly, what we don't do. All work has the same value. We would generally probably then do lots of work at the same time, because we can't say no, because we have no way of saying no. That means that everyone's very busy. People don't have time to learn. And that's one of the the pillars of intrinsic motivation, as Dan Pink reminds us. The mastery of and development in our career is one of the intrinsic motivators. And without that, people will leave. And people hesitate to volunteer for work if they don't have the time to learn from others, because they don't want to do a bad job. So all these things tend to come from just a few underlying causes. And the assumption there is that a goal will emerge, as opposed to a goal being agreed and necessary for us to focus at the very beginning. But there's other common ones, like if we keep everyone busy all the time, we'll deliver more in any given period. Again, that just leads to traffic on the road, traffic jams, everything slowing down, projects taking longer, everyone multitasking, etc., etc. So these management assumptions lead to actions and rules being set that then get in the way of staff unintentionally, despite management's best efforts. And so looking at these over time and space, at how an intended assumption leads to an action, leads to a result over a long period, and then kind of working backwards, saying, did this lead to what we expected?
Assessment.
The best way of kind of working this. So yeah, long-winded way of saying many obstacles tend to go back to psychology, back to an assumption about reality that's not true. And those are the ones that we need to kind of identify, change, and then we can kind of make sure that the actions that follow are helpful rather than hindering stuff. What about you? What have you seen?
Yeah, so as you were talking, I was thinking, I think you hit the nail on the head, 1000%, right? And I was thinking, as we take it to the practical, like, office space environment, how can leaders address these? And I'm going to go with the issue that you mentioned in terms of clarity, what we've been kind of talking through about this whole podcast, right? So ways that leaders can practically address that, as far as, how do I give my team more clarity? So I thought about this, right? Clarify expectations publicly, not privately. Don't have siloed one or two side, conversations. No, to the whole team publicly. State what the expectations are, so everybody gets the same message, right? Then I thought about this one: make success visible and simple. I've been on teams where what was success, like what did the leader deem to be successful, was not very clear. And so you had people trying to do like 50 and 11, is a new phrase, right? 50 and 11 things to try to achieve whatever quote unquote success was. And there were hurt feelings and disappointments, or people felt like the leader was playing favorites because it was not clear to the entire team what success was, or what would guarantee success. So that was one of the things that I thought about while you were talking. I also thought about this other one here, right? Competing priorities. Departments often protect their own tasks, deadlines, and pressures. Yet when priorities become shared, cooperation becomes logical. And, to the leader, yeah, a lot of us are leading in environments right now where it's high charge, heavy driven tasks are, it seems to be insurmountable. The team is go, 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 go. And there's competing priorities for our time, for our money, deadlines. But we still have to find a way to bring the team together to be able to accomplish things as a shared responsibility. And one of the ways that we can do that is to align the priorities across the team, right? So that everybody has this shared vision of collaboration. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, you can see me scribbling away. That was good. I like that. So I agree with your points wholeheartedly. Just want to kind of build on them. So yeah, the information's symmetry, right, where everyone's involved in all the discussions, so they can all make informed decisions, and also so they can scrutinize. I believe in sociocracy, or kind of shared decision making, where you'll kind of consent or object, and when you object, you bring new information to the table, saying, I don't think we should do this because this is a really important thing we haven't taken into account. So I believe in that kind of approach is very helpful. The manager doesn't know best. No one person knows best. It's together, our understanding of reality and our understanding of our past experiences that allow us to build a better plan together. Everyone's trying to get to the same place. And if we're trying to go in different directions to get to the same place, there's a fact that needs to be uncovered. That's very important. So yes, I agree with that for two reasons. One, because we should all know everything as best we can within a team, and we should all be able to scrutinize it and improve the direction together. So we kind of take the shortcut. We take the Uber as opposed to the bike. The other thing was around conflict. Yeah, I totally agree. And that, I think, just a slight kind of nudge on what you said, if I may, and I'm keen for you to disagree with me. I think I don't want to share priorities. I want to share a goal. So every team, should almost be like a fractal, right? All work together around. Like, we should have the organizational goal, and we should understand the necessary conditions to achieve it. The things that we need to maximize to help then maximize the organizational goal towards infinity. And at some point, those become the team level objectives. And so if teams aren't if teams are conflicting, which is natural, we can always ask, well, what is our shared goal? If we kind of take a step back, what is the goal that we're both working towards? What are we trying to maximize? And that way we can understand we should naturally be prioritizing the same thing at the same time. And if we're, rather than kind of getting resynchronized, if we try and work the other way around, and the reason I say that is because often I've seen teams work the other way around, where they work bottom up and they say, these are all our priorities. And then they say, oh, let's get together and talk about all the priorities and work out how we can play Tetris with them. Whereas it should almost be the other way around, where if we work from the goal backwards, the goal should be the sourcing algorithm for the teams to sort things at do the same thing at the same time. Because we're trying, organizations are allow us to achieve what one individual, one team can't achieve in isolation, right? Ideally, we break down those interdependencies so we can have people work more independently without needing to prioritize across teams. That's great, and we should always try and optimize for that as infinitely possible. But where we can't, we need the teams to be working towards the same goal. If not, then they're just going to be working. So we need to design for that. And so priorities are steps towards a goal, but we should ideally have the same goal in mind, so naturally just falls out of that. And I'll say one more thing, and I'm keen on your.
Yeah, this is good. This is good.
Oh no, I'm keen for disagreement. That's where the fun is, where we learn. But the other one is, I guess, just defining the role of manager, right? In my view, a manager isn't there to make decisions. Ideally, a manager is there to amplify the impact of the team. So that should hopefully then mean that they don't become a bottleneck, decision-making bottleneck. The team, should get better and better making decisions themselves. And I say that just so you can see when I respond the way I do, why I say the things I do, that I have quite a distinct view of what a manager should be. And sometimes in different organizations, they skew that in certain different directions. But for me, the manager is to amplify the impact, no more, no less, not make the decisions on behalf of the team, create an environment for them to make good decisions, help them make better decisions, help them provide everything they need to improve, but not do it directly, because that makes them the bottleneck. And then they slow everything down and stop the team improving, they atrophy. But that's not what comes up for you, AJ.
Oh, this is good. This is like a master class. I mean, you're
Mm.
really teaching us, this is fantastic. I love this. So we're going to take a moment here to do another reflection, right? And to all of our leaders here, we want to ask ourselves this question based off of what Simon just shared with us. Am I giving my team a finish line that they can see, right? Simon talked about knowing what the goal is, or am I just demanding that they run faster? And so you want to stop and ask these clarifying questions, right? So that you can really get a good baseline for how you're leading, but also how your team is functioning and what is the culture amongst your team. So, Simon, as we turn the corner here, this is a really great conversation. Let me ask you this final question, right? What signs, what signs should leaders look for that show cooperation is improving and focus is becoming part of the team's culture? We talked about that earlier, right? Having this as a culture, not a one-time announcement. So what signs can I as a leader look for that shows me, hey, cooperation here is improving with my team and focus is becoming the norm?
Hmm. That's a good question. I think it depends, doesn't it? So, I mean, I can go to like, I can be prescriptive. And then my prescriptive thing is that if all that is true, then we should see delivery. We should see increased predictable delivery over time. And so you can use control charts, you can use, statistical methods. Very simple control charts, run charts, um, um, capability charts, all the same thing. Really wonderful Deming-Stewart kind of thing. They show anytime you do something, have I increased the predictability? So not just a one-off kind of improvement and then it goes downhill, but have I actually seen we should see things become more predictable. We should see lead time reducing, and we should see it kind of also becoming more predictable over time. So it's not like this. It's not like, oh, better one day, worse the next. It should be kind of generally becoming more predictable. So you can, that's a more prescriptive thing that's very, very helpful to see if any intervention over time has pushed things in the right direction, i.e. kind of improved the measurement you care about and made it more predictable. As opposed to you just kind of tampering and kind of actually introduce more variation, which is very easy to do as a manager. Just shout louder and then things look good for a day and then it just goes up and down, up and down. So that doesn't help. But really, I guess the great thing about a goal is the goal helps you understand out of all the things in front of you right now what matters the most. It allows you to there's so many signals. Everything's on fire all the time for managers. It becomes very hard to know what signals to pay attention to. So if you focused on improving cooperation, then you've obviously seen a need for that, and you have signals there before, right? I guess I'm just talking about the scientific method, right? There are signals there that existed, and you want to plan, do, check, act, right? You want to say these are the if I do this, I believe this will happen because of that. So you create your own measures. You define what is it that I'm seeing that makes me believe there isn't cooperation right now? And that might be, for example, delivery is slowing. It might be that my people are complaining. It might be quantitative, it might be qualitative. Fine, have both, whatever you want. But it has to be disprovable as well as provable, as Richard Feynman would remind us. And then do your thing. Then do your because, and your because is your mental model. Why you believe this thing will help. Talk to your colleagues. It has to be, it's their system, not just yours. They know the world better than you. You know the world better than them. Together, you have a really good view of the world, and try it out. But then go back and say, did in cooperation, in the way that I define cooperation, did I see an improvement? Yeah, you can use control charts. Control charts are great, but they're very lagging. So it's better to define what cooperation means in your eyes and your organization, and that might be another team working more closely with you, delivering in a more predictable manner so you can get your things out on time, and that's a leading measure. If they are able to deliver, then you're able to deliver faster. But I'm being slightly ambiguous just because every situation is different. But I think I'll go back to maybe the scientific method, or plan, do, check, act. Define what cooperation means, define the measurements by which you think it isn't good right now, try something with your team, and then go back and measure those things over time. Maybe control charts would be a great way of doing that. So, statistically significant, and then see if it's a step in the right direction, the wrong direction, and the amount that you expect. If it's more or less than you expect, that's learning. That's great. That means there's something else to be learned that will lead you to your next job. What do you think, Adrienne? It comes up to you. How do you?
Yeah, I think you're definitely on the right track, right? I know what I've seen is that people start owning their role in the mission, right? Been a, for me as a leader, that's been a clear sign for me that cooperation is improving and that people are focusing in on what the intended goal when I see them starting to take ownership, right, for the mission. Another one that I've experienced is this one I actually love. Decisions get faster and clearer when the team is aligned. They don't have to debate the mission, they execute. I've personally experienced this when my team started to focus in. I didn't have to spend a whole lot of time explaining things, right? I could say something and they got it. The team automatically started to know what were the beginning steps. They were contributing more in our staff meetings, in communicating and talking about the vision. People didn't seem, they I won't say they were afraid, but it's like they were no longer afraid to have a voice. They felt that psychological safety, like, you know what, I can say it, my answer doesn't have to be perfect, but since I know the vision, we're cooperating here, there's a focus, I feel safe enough to be able to contribute. So those are two in particular that I personally as a leader have seen and experienced. Yeah. So this is good. Well, listen, Simon, this has been an amazing conversation. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there were many things that you shared with us, gems that you shared with us that the leaders in this community are processing right now. And so I want to ask you, for the leader that is listening and watching, that wants to reach out to you, that wants to, tap into the resources that you have, maybe get some coaching, what's the best way for them to be able to do that?
I appreciate you asking. So you can find me at curiouscoffee.club. There you go. Look at that. It's not .com, it's .club. And there I share an article, a free book of how organizations can get out their own way. It's generally not obvious until you're in hindsight, but yeah, hopefully that will help.
Fantastic. Well, Transformation Station community, you know that we always like to support our guests. So you see the link here on the screen. It's also in the description box for our listeners. Go ahead and reach out to Simon. As a matter of fact, I want to invite you to reach out to him and let him know that you saw or you heard this particular podcast episode, and let him know what stood out to you, what resonated with you, and how you're growing through the gems that you received today. Simon, thank you so much again. It has been wonderful to have you here at Transformation Station. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, listen, there you have it. Another amazing podcast episode, right? Here's your challenge for this week. I want you to choose one area where your team can simplify, streamline, or refocus. Maybe it's redefining the win. Maybe it's tightening the communication. Maybe it's pausing what is not serving the mission right now. And then I want to invite you to drop a comment and share what's one thing your team needs to focus on right now. And if this episode inspired you, which I know it has, share it with a leader or a teammate who's ready to stop spinning and to start advancing. Until next time, stay focused, stay aligned, and keep transforming from intention into action.